So I always know that it's bad to talk before lunch. It's actually the first time that I'm talking after lunch, so it's an experiment, right? First, two apologies. First, for this long introduction, this is not me, this is my marketing. They're all fired. Second, sorry to my iPhone. We never separate, and I know there will be separation anxiety. I'm coming back, don't worry. But I want to start from saying thank you to Irina for inviting me here. It brought an enormous joy to my family. They were laughing their brain out, saying, "You in cosmetics." This is really, they could not stop laughing. And to the people who are working for me, they understand that I'm crazy enough to go to London and talk with you guys, and now they could figure out what I could do with them. So before we start talking, one kind of a test. So in roughly 100 years ago, French psychologist by name Ribot did the study. He studied level of creativity, imagination in people versus age. And you can see, and this is kind of a bell curve, right? So anybody would guess where the maximum was? So this is age. I understand you're after lunch, so you're slow.
5 years.
5 years? Anybody else? 1, 2. Smart crowd. I'm in trouble. Anybody else? So you kind of close. Yeah, it was 12 to 14. But remember, it was 100 years ago. Today, it's much closer to what you said. So we're all hopeless. So we all understand that we're all hopeless. Even the youngest ones, our mental artery have been already hardened. So we cannot rely on our personal ability. Yes, experience, I will try to be honest, experience really kind of changes the curve a little bit. But it's still, I actually like to pull the eggs on the executives. When I walk in the corner office of a CEO or a C-level guy or gal of big corporation, I walk in and say, "You guys are in trouble." What? What do you know about us? "Are you guys in trouble? What do you know about us?" "I know nothing. I just walk from the reception to your office, but I know that you are in trouble." Why? Because I have not seen any kids or housewives in hallways. And kids and housewives are two most creative group of people on the planet Earth. So, no, it's true. So we know why kids, right? Why housewives? Because they deal with kids and they are multitasking all the time. So, we are hopeless, and because of that, we have to rely, besides being who we are, on some help. And help in our world comes through certain tools, processes, or otherwise discipline of innovation. Discipline not from the standpoint of yes, sir, but discipline from the standpoint of tools and processes. Innovation could be taught, and we have taught thousands of people at GE and Siemens, Alcoa, P&G, you name it, and could be reproduced and repeated. So, 2 words, I didn't plan to do it, with GEN3 Partners. I have an identity crisis, to be honest. We're an innovation consulting company of problem solving. We work from potato chips to electronic chips industry. Like literally when I give lecture, I always ask people, what's in common between all these companies, between P&G and Alcoa, between Siemens and Georgia Pacific? Anybody would guess? They are the best companies in the world in their sectors. And they all have come to the point where they've realized that they cannot use the existing capabilities, existing processes, existing approaches to solve their challenges, problems. And they came to us, and we have done all these beautiful things for them. But it's not what I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to talk to you about all the aspects of what we do, and we do some wonders. And some of the products that, I'm a very modest person. I'm a very, very modest person. And even though all men are liars, I'm kind of trying to be honest and open. So you've seen some products that we've developed, from Crest White Strip to others. But this is what we will talk about. We will talk about what if the products that we develop and have could speak, what they would have told us, or what would have told us about how we could improve it, or how we could develop their brothers and sisters so the market will react on them. If the systems were hiding some sources of customer value, how could we find this? And last but not least, what would customers ask from us? And we will try to do it together if they could. So somebody said today that it doesn't matter what company you're working for, big or small, you're dealing with the same issues. It's absolutely true. It's actually sad news because, no, it's a sad news because you think that you could be different, right? So you go and you start something, it will be different. But unfortunately, it's all about the same. We all need to grow, we all need to sustain our financial well-being, and so on. So in pursuing growth, if you want to grow, what do you do? Tell me, what should I do? What we all do? Where is this main source of growth? Innovation, right, but it's a mean. It's a mean, right? So it's all you guys have talked about that today we'll talk about. Right. It's finding source of customers' value and deliver them on that, right? So there's nothing else that exists. Yeah, we could force customers to buy something that they don't want to buy, and good marketing campaign and a couple $2 billion could make it. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be sustainable. So value creation is the source of growth, of a source of sustainable growth. And innovation, product and services, could be the catalyst of this growth. So as Gwen said, I used to have normal life. I'm sorry to say I have PhD in material science. I understand that this is not very valuable, but I did have normal life until 20 years ago I got into something that I didn't know about. So I understand what a catalyst is, and everybody else understands too, right? And to yield this economic value and use this catalyst, we need a certain focus. It's like in chemical reaction. You need to put certain ingredients together. So you could have the best catalyst in the world. If you don't bring the right catalyst together, it would not work. So in our world, we talk about main parameter values, attributes of the product that people would pay for. And every word here is operative. It's not just what is nice to have, it's main. We're talking about parameters, something that is measurable, not just wishy-washy, marketing talk, and value. And value is what I get versus what I would pay for. I actually came up with this definition some years ago when my friends in Procter came to me and said, look, our marketing told us that in Europe, women who put diaper on a kid want to have a warm feeling. They want to feel how their grandmothers felt that they're taking care about the baby, but at the same time, it should be convenient and fast. So we went to R&D, and they said, what does warm feeling mean? Tell us in parameters what do we need to do. Otherwise, it will be trial and error. So it's all about main parameters of value. If you look at today's car, when you go buying cars, and I live in the States, so it's all about buying cars, right? And this is a national sport. So what are you looking at when you're buying a new car? What parameters of the car are important for you? Anybody? Speed. What safety, would you pay for safer car? Or why do you need a higher speed? There's a speed limit.
Is it not fair to say that some brands are catering to different values? Like Volvo is all about safety.
Correct.
Right. But you expect, this is parameters of value that you expect to be satisfied, right? But today, when you go and buy a car, you're looking for audio. You're looking for a shape. You're looking, it has nothing to do with the main function of the car. But this is a new latent parameters of value that the best automakers have identified. I've said 10 years ago that the car should be viewed as an information and entertainment system that happens to move. And this is what is the most valuable thing today. So what we will try to do today is to talk about new way of, in addition to everything that you do today, that could help us finding these new sources of customer value. How do you figure out that the car is, the main parameter of value is ability to connect, not by driving me from A to B, but connect to the internet, great audio, and so on and so forth. So we will do it by, so how do you usually find these sources of value? What do you usually do? Consumer research, very good. Or you could ask your boss. Or you could, as a CEO, I expect that people ask me and listen to me. Yeah, I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm counting how many times they asked me and how many times they followed. And I put, a check mark. Yeah, we could do the consumer research, right? And, there are different means of doing that, right? And the best companies are doing it actually very well. They don't just ask customers. They observe what they do, and they do kind of ethnography, and you name it. Right? You could ask your boss, you could just try to be lucky, and so on. But somebody talked about Apple. Yeah, but this is, I agree with Steve Jobs said, especially when you talk about breakthrough. Look, I talk about my baby, my iPhone, right? If you asked me 10 years ago, I would never come up with the features that, and I'm like a sophisticated in this space consumer, right? So most of the time, or a lot of time, people really don't know what they want. So what if, in addition to asking and interviewing consumers, we will interview the product? If we will ask the product what customer value can we deliver using your product or features that already exist, what is inside you? And this is kind of gives us most of the time opportunity to find these new unexploited or latent parameters of value, the ones that we cannot reveal otherwise. By the way, so to make clear and be honest, people have been developing products and services without us or without voice of God. I don't know how they do it, but probably don't sleep and so on. This is all about making it more predictable, structured, and less risky. So we could, and there are three ways how to find the sources of value. We could interview the system. And the system is something that is put together to fulfill certain main function. And let's say I spend half of my life on the plane. When people ask me what I do for a living, I usually say I'm warming up seats on airplane. So I could use this example. Yeah, with this trip, I'm sorry to say, I will have over 75,000 miles in these 5 months. This is really sad news. When flight attendants start recognizing you, you understand that you have to change the job. And, you're talking about hotels. I have the best innovation for the hotels because what's the most difficult part when you wake up in the middle of the night in a hotel? There are two questions that it's the most difficult to answer. And somebody needs to help me. First, what country I'm in, and second, what part of the bed I should go off to go to the bathroom. This is the two most important questions, and there's no innovation that will give me a hint right away. Anyway, so the system, when you look at airplane, right, you have a fuselage, wings, electronics, seats, and so on, and they're all put together for a reason, right? So they could operate as a system. So if, God forbid, there is a crash and there is a debris on the ground, so you and I will walk and we'll see a mess, right? Because there is no rhyme or reason. FAA experts will come and they will look at that and they will say it's a system because they could figure out why things are connected or disconnected this way. So when we talk about the system, it's a bunch of components that are put together for a reason, right? So we could interview the system and we will work together, and I'll show you how we use tools called function analysis to do that. We could interview the industry and looking at a pattern structure and pattern landscape, you could see what the industry thinks. And we could interview the future. We could actually look in the future and predict accurately where technology or products are headed to increase the value. This is what we will do together, and then we will use some kind of only interviewing the system. We'll try to work together. Okay, so it's all about discovering new main parameters of value. Because remember, this is attributes of the product or services that people would pay for. This is not what's nice to have, but what people would pay for. And the value is what you get or what it will cost you. So value and main parameters of value is the tricky part. When I ask my wife, what was the value of her 47-minute conversation with her mother, this is the wrong question, right? Because you get back 48 minutes explaining why your mother was wrong 30 years ago. So when we talk about the system, we need to talk about components of the system and the supersystem, what it surrounds for. I always tell people, how do you figure out what's a system, what's a supersystem? What you're responsible for is the system. What you cannot change is a supersystem, but you could use it as a resource. Let's say in this room, I'm responsible for temperature control, right? So I could change the heating system, I could change air condition, but I cannot do anything with the walls. This is not mine. Walls are the elements of a supersystem. But I could use them, right, if I paint them in the right way, in the right paint. It will either make it cooler or make it warmer or give you a perception. So what is around us, around our system, gives us some resources, but nothing we can do on that, how to change it. But what's important that we interact with these components anyway, so why not use them? So let's look at an example. Let's say you have an oral care product. I wouldn't go into details, right? And oral care product could be toothpaste, mouthwash, you name it. And usually it has foundation material, something like create a bulk, right? And some active ingredients that you could put in that will do kind of the real work, right? So this is our products. This is what we're dealing with. But what components of a super system you could think of? What do these products interact with when you put it in your mouth? Saliva, very good. What else? Food, very good. Debris of the food or food, right. Anything else in anybody's mouth? Teeth, very good. Huh? Yeah, smell, right? So we could go kind of in more details, right? We have some air, we have gums, there's a bacteria, and there's a biofilm, right, which is plug, right? Mucus, there are certain receptors. You named some of them, right? But there's other receptors that we have. And we could go and actually in a different level. What's the most important thing when you do what we just did, component analysis? Make sure that you keep this component roughly on the same level of hierarchy, right? I could go and name 38 different bacteria that exist, but it will be not on the same level of granularity or hierarchy as your teeth. Or you could go and say, my system is a tooth, right? And then you keep a component of this system, animal, and this and that, right? So this is what we're dealing with, right? And the next thing is to figure out how this component interact. What function each of them performs. Function is an interaction between two components when one changes or maintains parameters of another. Once again, physical interaction when certain parameters changed or maintained. So let's try it. What's the function when the soldier put a casket on a head? What's the function of this casket? What parameters does it change? Protect. Interaction between two components. So what does it interact with? With the head, with the bullet, with air, right? What is the function, main function? Why do we put it on our head? Or soldiers put it? Protection. What does it interact? Most of the people said protect the head, right? Does it change any parameters of the head? No. Temperature, right? It's a harmful function.
Temporarily, yes, like temperature.
Main function is to stop a bullet, right? Why it's important? Because when you say stop a bullet, you immediately could think about different means of doing that. You could stop mechanically by moving a gasket. You could create a magnetic field around your head, right? Function is a goal, technology is a mean. What's the function of eyeglasses? Does it change anything in your sight? No. Your eyes are the same. It does not do anything with your eyes. Material object. What's a material object? What's the function of our eyeglasses? Does it? No. Reflect light. So function interaction between two material objects when one changes and maintains parameters of another. So structured way. So if we look, that's what you're supposed to do. But I decided not to torture you tomorrow. So you see, this is the interactions. I'm colorblind, so my people told me that some arrows have different colors. And it's a kind of a drawback of being a CEO. You have to trust your people. So functions are usually kind of a different type. Some of them useful, right? Let's say we put a helmet on the head. It's useful. It stopped the bullet. Some of them harmful. It means that we did not want them to do that, but they do it anyway. Let's say increasing temperature under the gasket, right? Or with eyeglasses, yeah, it reflects light, but at the same time, it changes my appearance and so on. And some function, even useful, are not performed at the level that we want them to perform. They are performed better or worse, which is equally bad. Because every time when you do something not exactly how it's supposed to be done, you pay for that. It's funny, I was in Toyota a few years ago, and it's true. You read it and you think it's a fairy tale. They do have spare parts in their warehouse for 3 hours of operation. 3 hours only. Ford has for months and a half. So Ford performs the function of storage spare parts better than it's needed, and they pay for that heavily. So do it better or worse is equally bad. So the ones that are dotted line, the functions that are not performed adequately. So if you look at that, you could see that different components interact differently. And even looking at this functional model, this is a way to interview each component. What do you do? How well you do that? And we put this objective picture. And now if you need to improve your oral care product, looking at that, do you see any directions of how you could improve the value of a product? You could go and eliminate harmful functions, something that system does what we don't want it to do, right? Let's say some of these active ingredients stain teeth. They're supposed to kill bacteria and all this stuff, but at the same time they do this, right? Or we could see that active stimulate oral receptors, but not good enough. So we could say, okay, if we have a product that creates a better taste in the mouth, it would be valuable for the consumer, right? So it's parameters of value, a direction that you say, I have to go after. Or you say that flavor control, right? Saliva dissolve this active agent very fast. What if I figure out how to make a product that would not do that? So, but at the same time, we could find something that not a single consumer is asking for. So, for example, we see the saliva moves active agents, but it does it not in controlled way. I cannot put it where I need it. I put them really where the cavities are, right? But saliva does it randomly. What if I create a product that will transport, use saliva to transport active where it needs to be? This will be very valuable for the consumer. And we did not ask them for that because they would not know. But by the way, if you show it to them, not obviously this picture, but ask them, what if we give you a product that will predictably deliver active ingredients where you need to have? Are you going to pay for this product? The answer will be yes. It's a good feature. And we got this by interviewing the system. We got this because we use this tool, functional analysis. In a structured way, we look how different components interact and don't interact properly. And we identify these opportunities. Nothing replaces checking with the consumer. Don't get me wrong. It's not about bypassing the consumer or asking for voice of a customer. It's finding new potential sources of value that you have to validate with the market later on, right? So do you see anything else that you could think about? Yeah, there is a number of functions that are not performed adequately or performed, harmfully, right? So they all potential sources of new value. You cannot do it in a vacuum. If you know nothing about the product or the industry, you won't be able to count. This is not a magic, right? Some years ago, I was giving a big lecture at Samsung. It was 300 people, and I was at my best. I was very good. And they were listening and writing down. And then I said at the end, guys, do you have questions? So one guy raised his hand and said, Dr. Kogan, it's very interesting. We want to see how you will do it with our problem. And I said, guys, it's not a circus. It's not a magic. I don't do this. No. And 300 Koreans, so you don't want to say no right away. So I said, let's try. So the guy raises up and starts telling me about the problem. And I'm smart enough, and I have PhD in material science, could not understand what he was talking about. So I said, okay, let me understand on a physics level how it works. Silence. So I repeat slowly, I want to understand the physics of how this works. Silence. So I go to the guy who organized it. I said, I don't understand what's going on, because I thought that they understood when I was talking, and suddenly asking simple question. And they talk between themselves, and my Korean is rusty. So they come back in 10 minutes. We don't understand why you're asking this question. You have all your tools. Why do you need to know physics? So the moral of this story, nothing replaces the knowledge of subject matter. This is the tool that allows you structurally think about that. So, and by the way, you need to do the same for different life stages of the product, because for different life stages, you will have a different functions, useful, harmful, and so on. And let's say during use, it's one story, right? And let's say it's about the product, it's about kind of a disposable plate. So you have a disposable plate, there's a substrate and a coating, right? And during use, you could see the different functions and what is important, right? So easy grip, strength, and leak-proof, and so on. And this is what you think, this is what we need to focus on, right? But when you look at post-usage, you see the different main parameters of value, right? You see different opportunities. If holding the food on a plate was very important during usage, right? It becomes harmful or bad during post-usage. So it's a new parameter of value. If I could have a plate that would easily discard remnants of food, it would be valuable for the consumer, right? So, and you have to analyze all these different occasions and find different new parameters of value. Now, interviewing the industry, it's very important, but looking at the patents and structure them in different categories. This is about some olfactory product, chewing gum, right? You could look at what you do as a company versus your competitors in different categories, and then you suddenly say, if everybody in the industry goes after health benefits, should I think about that? Is the value there? It's one by itself, wouldn't replace everything else, but it gives you different things. You look at what industry does. And the last but not the least, interviewing the future, which sounds like a stupid thing to say. But it turned out that products and technologies and system overall are similar to biological and social systems, are evolving according to certain trends. You could predict evolution of products and technologies. It's been analyzed by millions of patents, and they all get in the same patterns. And products and technology evolve because they want to increase the value. And there are some trends that governs this that could tell you in what direction to go to increase the value. For example, let's take a keyboard that we're all dealing with. Where do you think the keyboards would go or should go? If you were in charge of developing new generation of keyboards, what would you do?